Well, the United States government has said it does not consider the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, a terrorist organization. Last week, the Federal High Court in Abuja gave a judicial backing of the executive order of President Muhammadu Buhari outlawing the group and its activities in the country. Joining us via Skype from Belgium is Global Affairs Policy Analyst Collins Nweke. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Fadeshola.
Now, tell us, how relevant do you think is the United States decision not to consider IPOB a terrorist organization?
Yeah, I do think it's pretty relevant. It is pretty relevant because in the fight against terrorism, I believe that the United States, plays a major role. Now, if you take the position of the United States in isolation, it will weigh rather light. But if you take it in combination with the fact that just a couple of days ago, the European Union also made a similar statement to the effect that they do not consider IPOB, indigenous people of Biafra, as a terrorist organization, then you get a fuller picture of the sort of problem I believe that the government of Nigeria has actually put themselves with this latest movement.
All right, but then the presidency insists that it will still carry on with this proscription of IPOB. I mean, Mr. Oboy now was still talking tough now on the meaning of this. But tell us what you think now. What will happen to this Biafran cause now that activities around Biafra has been outlawed in Nigeria?
Well, I believe that by and large, the government of Nigeria appear to think that they are on their right course when they decided that IPOB would have to be classified as a terrorist organization, because the ultimate purpose is actually to shut down the organization. But doing so, they want to use the opportunity first and foremost to shut down the flow of funds coming to them. Now, in their calculation, I believe that the government had felt that individuals, especially those abroad, who have been financing the activities of IPOB, were in their right to do so, because IPOB could be considered as any other organization. Now, they felt that if IPOB ultimately was classified as a terrorist organization, those people would no longer be in their rights in financing it. So that was the first step. But from the look of things, that step was miscalculated. Now, it does look to me that the quality of advice that the presidency is getting, especially on this matter, is a very, very poor one, because ultimately it does look like IPOB is said to actually be more popular post-classification as a terrorist organization than they were before the classification. So I think the government is faced with a major challenge here.
Collins, we understand that the Indigbos have a match slated in Belgium for today. How significant is that match?
Well, it is very significant because, as you know, Brussels is de facto capital of Europe. A major institution of the European Union, which is the European Parliament, has its sitting here. The Commission President of the European Parliament, they all are positioned here in Belgium. And the Nigerian ambassador to Belgium and Luxembourg is also accredited to the European Union. So indeed, yes, it is significant. And the fact that not only Ndigbo in Belgium, but also other ethnic groups, friends of Nigeria, and other nationalities joined in the march and approved by the government of Belgium in terms of positioning the police to assist them in seeing that everything goes very well. All of these, make it very relevant and significant. And so far, I believe that the government of Nigeria, represented by the embassy, is handling it well because they have been granted an audience to enable them express the purpose of their protest. And so, yes, it is a relevant activity.
But then we've seen ahead of the march now, we've seen the press release from the Indigo group now. They're asking for a referendum on the issues of marginalization of the eastern Nigeria. And they're also asking that the army should be totally called off now. They should leave the southeastern part where they have been on now, trying to prevent a breakdown of law and order. But there is a lingering discussion on restructuring the whole of Nigeria now. Should this demand now by the Indigo worldwide now, can't we just broaden it to mean a restructuring of the whole nation?
It is an ongoing discussion, and I believe that Ndibo in Belgium are within their rights and indeed their obligation to make any sort of demand that they wish to make. Now, it is up to the government to sit down, welcome them, and then outline to them which of the demands that they have made that they consider reasonable and acceptable, and those that they believe that may be right, but the time is just not right. So it is a matter of how government responds to this. I mean, this is basically the first step, and the fact that the embassy of Nigeria opened their doors, welcomed them in, and said, sit down, let us hear what you have to say, is indeed a very, very respectful way of dealing with people. One could have only hoped that the government of Nigeria, and I mean successive governments of Nigeria since 1999, when civil rule came back, if they had that level of understanding of not simply throwing away requests and agitations of people, that they sit down, get people talking, dialogue, I think things wouldn't have degenerated to the stage where it is now. So it doesn't really matter how high or how low the demands that the Ndibo in Belgium have put on the table is. I think what matters is the fact that the government is ultimately willing to dialogue, ultimately willing to say, yes, we can do this,
right.
or no, we can do this.
We have to leave it there now, although the Indigo actually say they are at a loss as to why IPOB has been branded a terrorist organization. And you beg to ask the questions, are they not aware that there's been ethnic bigotry and the fact that IPOB has actually formed an army in the country? Collins Nweke, Global Affairs Policy Analyst, thank you for joining us on TVC News Hour.
Thank you for having me.